We're bracing ourselves in anticipation of the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee, which will announce its interest rate decision next Thursday. Now, in the last meeting, the MPC, the Monetary Policy Committee, decided to raise the repo rate by 50 basis points to 8.25%, and the highest cost of borrowing since May 2009. Now, astronomical interest rates are making it difficult for homeowners to keep up with their payments. And for more insight on this and what you can do to salvage the situation, we have property economist John Loos. Good morning, John, and thank you so much for joining us. And of course, this is a very difficult time for consumers generally. But if you find yourself in a situation where you simply have no option, you cannot afford your home repayments because of the high interest rates, inflation, etc., what do you do? Where do you start? Good morning.
Well, it's a tough, excuse me, sorry, my voice at this time of year. It's a tough one, Cindy, because home is also a very emotional thing. I understand that. It's not just about the rands and cents. It's about we live in the place. It's more than just a house. It's, it's where your kids are brought up. There's memories. There's a whole lot of issues here. But the reality is that a home, two of the purchases that bring about the most additional repetitive costs are a home and then a vehicle, I would say. They bring with them insurance and maintenance costs and a whole load of cleaning costs and electricity costs, rates, bills, and so on. So I think that ideally, the best, and we see it a lot in our estate agent surveys, a lot of people actually proactively sell to downscale due to financial pressure. And I think that is, when you're under financial pressure, that is first prize, is not to let your bank have to come to you and say, sorry, but you're in arrears now. You don't want to do that. You don't want to get the bad credit record. So proactively, it's often better to downscale on your home or perhaps your vehicle, because that's the way that you can cut your monthly costs quite significantly in future and get your finances back on track. You can even rent for a while. Should you, however, get to a stage where you are in arrears, I think the most important thing is to communicate with your bank, to go to them before they go to you. And banks are not really keen to repossess houses. Obviously, you owe money which they've funded from depositors' money, so they have a certain requirement. They have to ultimately try and recoup it. But ideally, they don't want to go down the auction route, the repossession route. That's in no one's interests. You don't get the best values on auctions for your houses. They will probably offer you something like FNB's quick sell, which is a special deal on commissions with estate agents. And you go the normal route and proactively sell to downscale. But I think it's important to always communicate with the bank up front if you're getting into trouble, and to try and make arrangements with them.
Okay, but what is the reasonable time for you while you are pondering whether you want to sell or whether your situation will improve if interest rates go down, or if you have a windfall, you won the lottery, for example, or an inheritance from a rich aunt? What is the reasonable time for you to try and figure out whether you need to sell your home or whether you want to stick it out?
It's tough to say, but I think that in many of our minds, we already know long before we go into arrears that the financial pressure is mounting. Your salary increases are not keeping up with inflation, whatever it might be. If one should actually be in a situation where you can absorb a few interest rates hikes, a few percentage points worth of interest rate hikes. That's ideally where you want to be when you buy a house in the first place, because we know that interest rates do go up at some point and they do go down. So you need to build in those financial buffers. So when you get to a stage where you're already heading for arrears, where you're feeling that pressure to pay all your bills, it's probably already time to start thinking of cutting back on something. Now, I'm not saying it has to be your house. As I said, it could be your vehicles. It could be, from private schools to good government schools. There's various options. But I think, before one's going into arrears with something as important as a home loan, one should already, be at the stage where you realize that you've got to take some sort of action.
And you're talking about the sentimental value that we attach to property, because this is where we generally create memories, and your children's pictures and paintings and what have you are on the wall and the fridge magnets. But the reality is that sometimes people feel ashamed. You don't want to admit, because now it would suggest that you are a failure in one way or another. You're not able to provide. You have missed something fundamentally in not being able to provide for your family. So let's deal with the emotion part of it and release people to say, look, it has happened to many other people before and you can recover.
Sure. I mean, some of the most successful people in the world will tell you that it's not about, success is about failure as well. They have these failures on their way to great success. We need to realize, I know that's maybe, I don't know if I want to call it old school thinking, that you're too ashamed to fail. But to a certain extent, maybe it is. The fact of the matter is, even the world's most successful people have some spectacular failures and flops along the way, and knocks. And, it's about getting up afterwards. It's better, not to, you don't want to sit. The last thing you want to do is just sit and wait and hope that things are going to get better. And eventually, the worst case scenario is your house gets repossessed, and the prices you get on auctions are nowhere near what you get in the normal market, I would say, on average. If you had equity in your home, it's gone in many cases in that case. So, that's just, then you're not definitely, but then your chances of getting back on your feet are even less. Proactive approach is the way to getting back on your feet the fastest.
Yeah, and let's quickly talk about the services that you offer as a property economist, and maybe where people can reach out, where mediators, if you feel that, it seems like such an insurmountable task, a daunting task to approach your bank. You've been in arrears, say, for a couple of months, and the bank is no longer cordial to having a chat with you. The mediators that can come into play here.
Yeah, no, that's probably not my place to, I'm just an economist or whatever, so I'm not going to talk about those, the various mediatory procedures and the legal procedures and so on. All I would say is really I can suggest the best thing to do is to proactively get in touch with one's bank, or if it's another bill that you got to pay, whoever it might be. Rather you go to them than they go to you. I think that's a better approach to have.
Just before we let you go, maybe something that is within your forte, John, sorry to interrupt you, just how the picture is looking. Are we seeing a property market, not necessarily a boom, a decline? What does the picture suggest?
It's a weakening market. I mean, house price growth is still some, but it's been slowing. And, demand and sales volumes have been slowing down. It's a declining market. And it's possible that in certain areas you are going into price deflation as well. That's where we are. That's pretty normal. It's a pretty normal occurrence when interest rates go up. This market is very sensitive to interest rate hiking. And to boot, we also have a very slow economy at the moment, which isn't really supportive of house price growth.
All right, John, thank you indeed. Really, really appreciate your time and your insights. We're speaking to John Loos. He's a property economist looking on the prospects of another rate hike, as the Monetary Policy Committee is meant to meet on Thursday and make the announcement whether it's a 25 basis point or 50 basis point. Either way, it is definitely going to pinch.